Okay. Um. So first of all, if you go to my channel, you see a bunch of things. You see, what's happening to me, and I've been consistent, and I'm going to continuously show the different disturbing manipulation they made me have, in different ways to torment me. But the reason why I make videos is for a few things. One is I want to make sure that if anybody watch this, I can help anybody because it helped me to be able to see things for what they are. Don't ever feel guilty or vilified for the manipulation I'm experiencing because I understand the purpose of it. Because of not only knowing myself, but having those validation that these things is what they do. I started making videos as soon as I saw the other videos, and those videos will show clear patterns of what they've been doing to me. It's so nasty. But you gotta be strong. You hear noise campaigns, you hear people who do everything possible to make you identify with this manipulation. This trash out low life. And they are deserving of things that are not even on this earth. But you gotta let time do its things. Everything has its time. But I know some people have lost their mind to the point of killing. Now, there's been a few mass shootings that are clearly coming from target individual. One of the most obvious one was the one in 2013, or the one in I forgot which year, with Myron May and Aaron Alexis. Aaron Alexis literally rode on his shotgun, which killed 12 people, and the torment, my ELF weapon. He ended up killing 12 people. And it's nasty. Matter of fact, this is what happened. Exactly. Please listen.
Was a mentally unstable individual. This shotgun is the primary murder weapon. On it, he etched a number of carvings, including "End to the Torment," "Better Off This Way," and my ELF weapon. Alexis had been hearing voices and believed he was being bombarded by microwaves, something naval authorities knew about.
There are multiple indicators that Alexis held a delusional belief that he was being controlled or influenced by extremely low frequency, or ELF, electromagnetic waves.
And in his computer files, the FBI found this.
A document retrieved from the electronic media stated, quote, "Ultra-low frequency attack is what I've been subject to for the last 3 months. And to be perfectly honest, that is what has driven me to this."
And so on what should have been a routine day, Alexis killed 12 people. Mothers, fathers, sons, daughters. Diane, they never had a chance, and still no answers as to why so many red flags were missed.
As you say, so many red flags. Thank you, Pierre.
So this is Aaron Alexis killed 12 people. You hear the symptoms of what he was saying, and clearly a target individual. But then again, there was another person. His name is Myron May. Fortunately, nobody was killed there. But this is what happened.
About his time spent here in New Mexico.
As sick as this may sound, I've even had stalkers follow me into church while I was in Las Cruces and in Houston. I've had stalkers follow me into church to harass me.
May had worked as a prosecutor in Las Cruces just weeks before the shooting. In his last words, May speaks of his paranoia and coins himself as a targeted individual who's been a victim of stalking and harassment. He talked about a trip to Houston where he said cars would drive by and honk their horns every 10 minutes to keep him on the edge and agitated.
Father, forgive me for what I'm about to do. Forgive me for all of my sins, past sins, present sins, any future sins.
He ended up going to a library and shooting the library. And fortunately, nobody died, but few were injured. Now, this is the things that some of the results of what this program has caused. Now, at this point, I understand what this program is about. They're using human subject to test out this very sophisticated technology that push people to lose their mind. It is so disturbing. The tactics are very, very systematic. There's things they do that is just so typical. As you can see here, when you Google target individual, so if you search target individual, here is what you're seeing. You'll read this, and this is just searching for target individual. The experiences of people who describe themselves as undergoing actual harassment using esoteric technology and who call themselves target individual vary, but experiences often includes hearing voices in their heads, calling them by name, often mocking them or others around them, as well as physical, and it goes on. So then you notice that there's a lot of truth in that, because that's true. As a target individual, I've dealt with this. They say disturbing things, but me, it's just more than just what they say, but the way they control me. And I've talked about this disgusting technology, the way they manipulate me and get these nasty thoughts and reactions. It's nasty, but that has been very well recorded. But in this video, I want to talk specifically about these mass shootings. The last one that just happened was on I think October 26, 2023. 18 people died. 18 people died. It was one of the largest mass shooting. And it's just disturbing. Listen to what happened, and then you'll see what they're trying to do. Because they're trying to counter reality. It's about debunking reality. They are low-life trash. Matter of fact, as I'm saying that, they're making noise campaign right now because they want me to still maintain this falsified reality they put together. But on August 26, 2023, listen to what happened.
Last week, to New York Times, I'm Michael Barbaro. This is Daily. Today, the mass shooting that occurred in Maine last week, killing 18 people, was the country's deadliest of the year. It may also have been one of the most avoidable.
As you heard, 18 people died. And as I mentioned there was a lot of sign that this man was going to lose his mind, to the point of killing 18 people. Sounds familiar, right? Sounds like this Aaron Alexis mass shooting, where with all the flags, red flags, showing that this man was going to lose his mind, still happened. But then you're going to hear how similar things are. Listen to what happened that showed the obviousness that this man was going to lose his mind to the point of killing 18 people.
And the documents show that these warnings concerned his deteriorating mental health, rising paranoia and anger, and they came from pretty much every part of his life. But as we now know, none of those warnings prevented this mass shooting.
Well, Nick, where should we start in the story of those warnings? You mentioned that they go back many months.
I mean, the first time when the local police are really made aware that this guy is a concern is about 5 months ago in May, when his ex-wife and teenage son go to a school resource officer, and the school resource officer calls down a sheriff's deputy to speak with the family. And in that interview, the teenage son and the ex-wife say that he has started to hear voices. He started to be increasingly paranoid and angry.
So you heard that he started hearing voices and really getting angry. As you can see, when you type in target individual, what you're seeing here, let me read this out loud for you. Search for target individual, paranoia, and this is what you're going to see. The experiences of people who describe themselves as undergoing electronic harassment using esoteric technology and who calls themselves target individual TI vary, but experience often includes hearing voices in their head, calling them by name, often mocking them or other around them. Listen, listen to what they call them. Usually, the things they say are derogative. Listen to the derogative things that this man heard.
Hanging out together at a motel, and he starts accusing them of calling him a pedophile. This is one of his paranoid delusions that comes up repeatedly. He shoves one at one point, and everyone is just freaked.
So you hear this, and then it's funny, they try to block it out, but this is not unique to this person. They tend to use this pedophilia type of tormenting as a way to insult somebody. On 2020, Robert Duncan was at a podcast, and he was talking to somebody whose name is I forgot. He was with a target individual called Lynn, and he was describing the typical things target individual go through. Listen to that.
Can I talk? Here's how I do my studies, and I wanted to find the commonalities, but I have to throw away the ones I'm uncertain about that are true targets. Maybe there's natural schizophrenia, there's a whole bunch of chemical imbalances,
right,
etc.
Right.
These weapons can actually induce and mimic all those diseases and effects. But the conversations, the scripts they're called, are always the same. And I've heard them all. They're slightly tailored for each individual, but they're scripts. And they're meant to confuse the very derogatory. That's just typical breakdown.
So when you hear those voices, they tend to be disturbing and derogatory. Usually is something in regard to pedophilia. It's usually pedophilia centric, calling you all kind of nastiness. And this is exactly what this person experienced. And on top of that, you see here that he became paranoid, thinking that the people talking to him were people from these two locations where he ended up shooting the place up. They love to make it sound like it's coming from certain places. They like to make it seem like these people are doing this. There's like this confusion and disorienting tactics they use to confuse one into thinking that this is coming from a certain place. It's part of this mind game. And this man thought those voices were coming from this bowling alley. That's why he shot up the places. Listen to this.
So they'll say, we're the Russian government, we're the Chinese government, we're evil aliens, we're Satan's, satanic ritual abuse. And I've heard all these stories. One guy believed it was some 14-year-old kid with an Xbox that lived next door. The trickery really is that great when you're under hypnosis that people will believe something other than it's to make your enemy believe you are near when you are far. It's to believe you are weak when you are strong. It's to believe you are, unorganized when you're very smart and strategic. And so they play all these games along with the torture scripts right out of the books on the target. And they make them believe that their neighbor with a ray gun is doing it to them, or a van. You are near when you're actually far. And all they have to do is jump on an airplane, find out, and we'll follow them anywhere.
So those voices is very disgusting things. They when they interact with you via voice to skull, usually is to degrade you one way or another. It's to put you down. It's nasty. For me, I've explained enough that there's more. Well, I said enough in regard of is to try to make me accept when they make me experience nasty things. But I can't speak for Robert Robert Card, the man who just killed 18 people, based on what he said here. And you see that the symptoms of what he thought he was experiencing consisted of hearing voices that repeatedly called him a pedophile. I was trying to find the video of some target individual who said the same thing. There's a bunch of this is commonly used. Commonly used. They commonly use derogative things to put you down. And I was looking for the one person who said that there's multiple and there's like a whole scripts of things they say, and being called a pedophile is the norm. That's why this becomes more and more obvious that Robert Card was obviously a target individual. When I started, first of all, I thought, okay, hearing voices, maybe schizophrenic. When I heard that the voices were calling him a pedophile, I was like, oh, that's typical target individual torments. That's when I knew I had no doubts. I have zero doubt that Robert Card is a target individual who ended up losing his mind because he thought those voices calling him a pedophile were coming from these places that he ended up shooting up. It's just too specific. Pedophilia is continuously used as a derogative tactic to break down the target individual all the time. This is all I've been saying. As soon as the mention of pedophilia was involved in his delusionality, quote unquote, I was like, oh, for sure. And hearing voices, oh, for sure. Typical target. He's a target individual. He's obviously a target. I have no doubt. Zero doubt. Which is horrible because this man killed 18 people and children died. A child died. Listen to what happened.
That was hosting a youth night. First 911 call coming in around 7 p.m. from a local bowling alley that was hosting a youth night for a kids' bowling league.
We have an active shooter. We have multiple injuries.
Authorities releasing these surveillance images showing the suspect they're looking for. His name is Robert Card, and he's pictured armed with an AR-15 style rifle.
Mr. Card is considered armed and dangerous, and police advise that Maine people should not approach him under any circumstances.
Megan Hutchinson and her 10-year-old daughter Zoe were at the bowling alley. Zoe's leg grazed by a bullet.
I never thought I'd grow up and get a bullet in my leg. Why? Why do people do this?
After allegedly shooting several people inside the bowling alley, Card is believed to have traveled about 4 miles to a local bar and restaurant. Sources tell ABC News that Card has a history of military service and is a firearms instructor. He was treated at a
hoping Bill Young and his son would be among the survivors of the shooting here at the bowling alley. It's also been hard to process, especially since the manhunt has entered another day.
Grief comes in different ways, and for Rob Young, that includes anger.
Human waste, human scum. I'm sorry, I got no nice words.
They are harsh words for Robert Card, the man accused of shooting and killing at least 18 people at a bar and bowling alley in Lewiston Wednesday night. Among the victims are Rob's 43-year-old brother, Bill Young, and 14-year-old nephew, Aaron. They were at spare time recreation for Aaron's youth bowling league.
It's bad enough to lose my brother, but Aaron's 14. His whole life in front of him.
Rob flew in from Maryland as his family frantically searched for answers. Just hours after landing, he says a state trooper delivered the tragic news.
It feels like we're going to wake up and we're all going to...
So, it's sad enough that 18 people died, but to find out kids got shot at, one died, shows how nasty it is. Now, with me, I understand that being a target individual will never, even when you heard the mass shooting that Aaron, Alexis, or even Myron May did in regard to shooting up a place, they mentioned specifically the reason why they did this and knew that because they were target individual. And still, there was nothing that was brought up in regard of, people are being used as test subject by the government, where they're pushing people into the level of insanity that they were willing to cause a mass shooting. Because this is never going to be publicized and it will never be mentioned. What's happening to us, target individual, is something that unfortunately will never be properly revealed. So you gotta understand that when somebody causes a mass shooting, they're gonna find everything possible to make it look like this man was not pushed by governmental entities to do this. So whatever they can find to provide as a reason that is not the true reason, they will do it. And of course, I never expected that they'll be like, hey, the reason why Robert Card lost his mind is because they were using him as a test subject, using voice to skull to say these nasty things, these derogative things that was pushing him into insanity and stressing him and thinking the whole world was against him, which is the typical things they do. When you're a target individual, you obviously become paranoid because you know that your whole ecosystem, people around you, are most likely involved in whatever is happening to you. Even if you don't know exactly what's happening to you, you know something. So for me, it's initially I knew something was off. Even before the voice to skull started, I knew something was bizarre around me. My family was acting bizarrely. Everything. And so you can see one of the things with Robert Duncan, right? As you can see on these pictures, is he thought the family, his own family, was involved in this. He thought that the family was inclusive in saying these things about him. He believed that they were involved in this conspiracy. If you watch my video here that I made in 2020, this is 3 years before this mass shooting happened. What did I say here? Family involvement. This is 3 years ago. This is not a video I made just right after I heard. This is 3 years ago, and I was talking about how I know my family is involved in this. I did not make this up. Matter of fact, if you think that this is just something I made up, listen to this. As target individual, you find out that people close to you are involved, or at least you believe so. I don't know if it's always the case, but for me, my family is involved for sure. But I think in some cases it could be just because of the level of high paranoia you think your family member is involved in it. But listen, this is not just unique to me. Listen to this.
It's like somebody just put some kind of spotlight on you, and that everybody is not really conspiring to get you. It's more of trying to drive you crazy. It's more of a psychological and emotional attack than anything. And this is the first time that we've spoken out about it, only because I've been seeing a lot of other videos. And I think that it helps to talk about, what's going on, because you may be able to prevent someone else from making the same mistakes that you made. And we made a lot of mistakes. We called the police. That was no help. We left our home. We quit jobs because of it. We've cut friends off because of it. We've cut family members off. The only way to really get through something like this is to be able to vent.
So this is just a snippet of a testimony of a target individual. She didn't experience the V2K, but you find out that people close to you, or at least you think they're involved in it. And this same thing here. He thought his family was conspiring, part of this conspiracy, which is very common as a target individual. He says the typical things that a target individual go through. It's so typical. It's just crazy. That's when I'm like, this is just insanely similar to all the testimonies that I've heard before. It's so similar to what I experienced. It's so similar, but it seems like he never figured out he was what this was really about. And it seems like, but because with him, all of that started in 10 months before he took a before he decided to cause the mass shooting. 10 months only. But you gotta understand, not everybody are the same. This man was very well trained to shoot and kill. He was basically trained most of his life for war, even though he never been in war. He never actually was deployed. He was always a reservist. He never was deployed in his life. For 20 years, he was just being a reservist. And so that's why perhaps he was so reactive in just killing so fast. This is a man who's a gun instructor. He knew how to shoot a gun very well. And so when you push this person to that level of insanity, he's going to take it there quickly, faster than anybody else. But like I said, this voice to skull, these voices, is always something negative. Always something negative. It's something that is destructive and foul. But it's always something negative. And for example, listen to the testimony of this woman. Her name is Mariana. She's a target individual that dealt with a lot of the things that we've dealt as TIs. On top of the voice to skull, she get everything else. But listen to her description of how voice to skull is working for her. Please listen.
2K, or voice to skull. This involves the projection of voices, noises, and music directly into my mind to communicate with me in real time and at the speed of thought. And it also includes the manipulation of thoughts, emotions, and perceptions in the person's mind. Additionally, the targeting is all highly perverted and sexual, as well as just.
So you heard her description, but there's a lot of the same type of testimonials from target individual. Listen to her here.
But I was going to be shot in the face. And it was an older guy. He was like really, really disgruntled and pissed off. Yeah, you're going to be shot in the face. Sound like an angry ass old person. Then a couple of days later, a female said the same thing. Don't get shot in the face. Stupid shit like that. But what I really noticed is with the voice of skull, it's a bunch of females. And I'm like, bro, really? You're not a woman. What real woman would stalk another female or sit back and allow that to go on? You really think they think it's nothing wrong with them? Basically, they call me a retarded bitch and all of this here, but I was.
But you heard the last part. On top of threatening her, they say some nasty things, and she goes on and says some more things. But I don't want to address it because I don't want to talk about it because they're gonna try to confuse me and make me speak about what's happening to me. And I want to focus on Robert Card, the man responsible of one of the largest mass shooting scene in this country. And so you hear that there's this common disturbing thing with this voice to skull that says things that are very derogative, and you're going to hear more. But listen to what came up, the kind of excuses they try to use. Now let me just remind you, Robert Card was never deployed in his life. He never, as you can see here, he was never deployed. He was and you can see here what he's specialized in. Even though he did 20 years as a reservist, never deployed, and never actually saw combat. And when you look at what he specialized in, some people might consider it very, average, in the sense that didn't do really anything too crazy. Matter of fact, he was a surgeon first class, and a petroleum supply specialist in the Army Reserve. But I'm sure, the training consisted of all kind of things, and so this is not a typical veteran or somebody who's seen combat, who's gone to like war zones where all kind of things can really cause you to have extreme brain damage, or to the point of like, he's a typical reservist, who didn't really do more than others, who's just typical, right? But listen to what they're trying to attribute what happened, and how they try to create, what happened, explain what happened in regard of what he did and why he did what he did, what caused him to do what he did. Well, like I said, we should never expect the media or any entity to be like, you know what, that looks like he was being utilized as a test subject. No, listen to what they did. Listen to what they are attributing what he did to. And remember what you just heard before that.
Boston University say a mass shooter who killed 18 people last year in Maine had significant evidence of traumatic brain injuries. Robert Card had worked at an Army hand grenade training range. He was likely exposed to thousands of low-level blasts.
They're trying to contribute what he did to him working at some points, and like she said, had work in a hand grenade range, training range. Hand grenade training range. Initially I was like, okay, first of all, I know that people in artillery, and dealing with cannons and RPGs and those kind of like rocket launchers and things like that. For sure, I'm sure that it causes some kind of damage to the brain, because even just the energy of doing that, and even when you see the videos, you see how like just the impact, and even like when it's launching, you see the earth shaking, and But when I heard like hand grenades, I'm like, okay, I'm sure that those can do some kind of damage, but to the point where you start hearing voices, and those voices call you a pedophile because you had worked at some point in a hand grenade range. Really? Like, and it's funny, the name of this video is called Debunked, because they're like, oh, you see, we debunked. It's like, Jesus. These men never actually saw combat. So I only imagine those people who went multiple tours, not only they dealt with being bombed with high explosive, explosion, but being shot some big heavy artillery, and never came back hearing voices calling him a pedophile. But the man who's a reservist for years, never saw combat, never was deployed, had at some point worked in this hand grenades. The grenades that you throw. It's not even the propulsion. At least that's what I think. Let me double check. Yes, hand grenade. And they're like, and he might have been exposed to 1,000. I was like, what? These people they've done that for years, have quadruple what this man went through in regard. Not only they have been deployed, but they also been training on different range, and this never happened. My point is, you just heard exact same testimonials of target individual saying they're hearing voices, saying that they're being manipulated, saying that the voices call them derogative things, saying some derogative things to them. And they're trying to contribute that to him working at some point in a range that's specific to hand grenades, and those like small explosion that did so much damage that he started hearing voices calling him a pedophile. Do you understand how crazy this sound? Well, I mean, listen, it's not crazy in the sense that that's what the mainstream is going to try to present. But I have people around me here who now want me to be. You see, that's proof. We didn't push this man to kill 18 people. The grenades that that time when he was working at the range, the grenade, the hand range, the hand grenade range pushed him to lose his mind. It was loud. It was so loud that it's like, are you serious? So you want me to think that this man was not a test subject where the V2K, which is utilized onto us target individual, were saying those derogative things, and he lost his mind because of that? But grenades, working with grenades at a certain period of his time. By the way, it's not all of it. He had a time when he worked there. They're delusional. This is supposed to debunk the reality that they pushed this man to kill 18 people. And it's so funny. Some people haven't seen them because they know obviously this man is a test sub. He's a target individual. That's what happened to him. Just like Aaron Alexis, who's hearing voices saying things to him that were obviously disturbing enough for him to push him to kill. Just like the man who's talking about how almost all target individuals have this, there's a script where they say the derogative things, disorienting things, confusing things. Target individual. But I'm supposed to think that this man who never been to never deployed, but because at some time in his life he worked at a hand grenade. I'm not talking about like the grenade launcher, like the big like rocket like launchers or the cannons or things like that. No, the grenades that you throw with your hand. Those small explosions contributed or the reason why, or pushed him to think and to have these voices saying these things to him. And they would tell me how they debunked the fact that he was a target individual who killed 18 people. Do you know how delusional it is? Now, listen, brain damage. Do I know if this like hand grenade can cause some kind of brain damage? I'm sure. I don't know, but guess what else can cause brain damage? Severe brain damage. When we are dealing with this voice to skull, there's some kind of vibration. This is why we are able to hear. There's some kind of vibration vibrating the brain to the point where it can actually damage the brain. So with time, the brain gets really damaged. It can be very damaging. Now, I'm sure that if they looked at his brain, they saw some of the damage caused by this technology for you to hear those voices. I know my brain is destroyed. I know if today we looked at my brain, it will not look like a normal brain. It look like a brain that's completely destroyed. So this brain damage can actually be also contributed by the V2K. But either way, when is the last time you heard somebody hearing voices that call him a pedophile because these people used to work at a hand grenades range at the military? He didn't even. It would be one thing if it was like somebody who dealt with like heavy artillery. I can't even pronounce it properly. Like heavy weaponry, like cannons and those like rocket launchers and things like that. No, hand grenades. Now I know the explosives are still loud, but there's military who've done way more powerful weapons, dealt with those weapons on a continuously level, and never heard these things. But this guy who never served he served as a reservist but never deployed, just in the dealing with grenades, hand grenades, would damage his brain to the point where he started hearing voices calling him a pedophile. And it would not be another target individual who's being used as a test subject, where they use these derogative things. They say these derogative things via V2K that will push him to lose his mind to the point where he thinks that everybody around him are conspiring and are trying to do harm to him, or are saying disturbing things to him, like so many other target individuals said. Of course, I know the obviousness here. Of course, I don't expect the media to be like, hey, you look more like a target individual, and V2K was. No, of course, I expect them doing that. Now, this perps around me, because I put the death of these people, inclusive of this child, on their hands too, because they're involved in a program that will push a man or a woman or anybody to lose their mind to the point where they will go to a place where there's a bunch of children and shoot up the whole place, killing 18 people, inclusive of a child. And so for them, they think that this should make me subscribe that he's not a target individual. You see the grenade, the hand grenades, pushed him to the trash ass. This is like exact play-to-play target individual. It would be one thing. It's like, I hear voices that call me pedophile. Oh, Jesus, that's the typical things they call target individual. Then you think your whole even your family is involved. Now that's typical. Oh my gosh, typical. And this, it would be one thing. It would be schizophrenia. This side, he was 40 years old. When was he working at this ranch? When all of a sudden, boom, it came. Psst. It's obvious that something started happening to him immediately, like voices call. And they start hearing the voices insulting him, saying these derogative things. And as a typical target individual, they tend to make it look like something else. They make it sound like the next door people over there are saying that. I remember when I thought it was people downstairs. I remember before they made it clear to me what it was. I could hear voices, and I thought it was all people upstairs or downstairs. I thought there was camera around me. Before they start doing this, like not only the voices call, but when they start doing the V2K or the synthetic telepathy. When they start manipulating me completely. Before, like I could hear voices, but it felt like it was I can hear people from downstairs. I think there's like the windows cracked up. That was before synthetic telepathy, when they started manipulating me completely. But you could still hear the voices. And I always thought it was people downstairs. Like, what? Now, they weren't saying these things. They were like, oh, you look, how cute. I'll do something and they would like make fun of it. Or I try to sleep and I hear them laughing at me. Oh, look, he's sleeping. That was before August 19, 2019, before the V2K started. Sorry, before the synthetic telepathy started. Now, you're going to hear a few things. One, you're going to hear how the brain can be damaged because of the V2K. Then you're going to hear how the V2K tend to be very derogative. This man doesn't specifically say what it was being said to him, but I think pedophilia was some kind of mention of pedophilia will probably utilize. This is something they use in the scripts a lot, calling people pedophiles or some nasty level of something like that. And I've been saying that for a while. And there's other testimonials of that nature. And it's just so nasty. So nasty. And I just want you to see how dumbed down they want me to be. And to them, this is debunking the fact that this Robert Card was not a target individual. Obviously, he was. You don't need to be a special freaking investigator to see that. Not even an analyst. You see the testimony of others who say the same things. So it's like, oh, whoa. Did they do how many grenades they threw? Truly try to make you accept these things. There is thousands of military who've dealt with more heavy weaponry with much more explosive weapons. And this man, who's a reservist, with the few, the thousand grenade he threw, if he made, and it's not even sure, those damaged him enough to the point where he started hearing trash. I'm hearing the next door neighbor trying to counter that because they don't want to be involved, or sorry, they already know they're involved, but they don't want to be acceptive of the reality they're in. They are involved in a program where they're pushing people to lose their mind to the point where of killing even children. So this child, this Aaron Young, is dead because trash like them. And they're finding any ways possible to debunk the reality of obviously what happened there. Instead of this stupidity, please listen to this again.
Universities say a mass shooter who killed 18 people last year in Maine had significant evidence of traumatic brain injuries. Robert Card had worked at an Army hand grenade training range. He was likely exposed to thousands of low-level blasts. This is NPR.
And they want me to think that it's not more similar to this.
Why? Was a mentally unstable individual. This shotgun is the primary murder weapon. On it, he etched a number of carvings, including "End to the Torment," "Better Off This Way," and "My ELF Weapon." Alexis had been hearing voices and believed he was being bombarded by microwaves, something naval authorities knew about.
There are multiple indicators that Alexis held a delusional belief that he was being controlled or influenced by extremely low frequency.
Hearing voices. This keeps coming up. Oh, listen to what he thought Robert Card was happening to him.
In May, when his ex-wife and teenage son go to a school resource officer, and the school resource officer calls down a sheriff's deputy to speak with the family. And in that interview, the teenage son and the ex-wife say that he has started to hear voices. He's started to be increasingly paranoid and angry. They also...
What happens next?
So the next thing we know that happens is in July. Card travels with his reserve unit to West Point, New York for an annual training exercise. And there's a very concerning incident that takes place. They're all hanging out together at a motel, and he starts accusing them of calling him a pedophile. This is one of his...
This is the typical things. So you see this clear correlation here. Hearing voices, think people after him, that you have this paranoia, and the voices say the derogative things. Now what you're going to hear next is you're going to hear the derogative things target individual tend to hear, or the common things that's been said by target individual dealing with hearing those V2K voices. You also hear, you're going to hear what the damages of what the brain can deal with the V2K. And you're going to hear the similarities with other cases. And understanding that the media is supposed to, the media is not, you will never hear the media or any entity say, no, you know what, at the end of the day, he was another target individual who lost his mind. What's a target individual? Somebody who's a test subject. Who's running the test subject for what? For the DOD. They're using human being to utilize this cognitive technology, your neurotechnology, to manipulate people into losing their mind to the point of pushing them to kill people. Of course not. I will never expect them to say, oh, he's a target individual. Of course, they're going to find what they can to give a reason for why he did what he did, instead of the reality of what actually happened. But this is what I expect from this media. But the people around me, this trash, think that I'm going to let them escape. It's like, you see, that's proof. They didn't say that he was a target individual. What? No, you see those low explosives that... So why is it the only one who've gone through this thing that comes up saying that he hear voices calling him a pedophile and end up shooting 18 people. He didn't even serve. He was never even deployed. He wasn't even dealing with like heavy artillery. Like, I don't have doubt that there's some kind of damage that can happen to your brain, but not to the point where you can hear voices that call you a pedophile. And especially, we're not talking about the heaviest artillery. I mean, some of these cannons and RPGs or whatever, these rocket launchers, you see how like the impact, or not even the impact, but the launch, how it just like it moves everything around. So I can imagine that doing that a lot. I mean, he wasn't even handling that. At first, I thought that's what he was handling. When I found out, the hand-thrown grenades. Yes, I'm sure it's loud, but. So what will happen to these people? What's happening to those people who deal with like heavier weaponry that really shake the ground when it's just launching? So this is what I call debunked, because they want me to ignore this track record of what target individuals have been saying. And it's obvious. Even talk about family conspire. This is exact same. This man is a 40-year-old man. It didn't come out 40 years old. I don't know the time when he was working at that ranch. It could have been years ago. But it will come out of nowhere now. So either way, this makes sense that he's a target individual. And because at the end of the day, how many other people working at the grenade range have experienced this? How many? None. But how many target individuals say the exact same thing he's saying? So, for me, the reason why I make this video is target individual, this trash, have the audacity to be involved in a program. They know they're pushing people to do these things. But to counter reality, to block reality, they want to create this fantasy. No, not with me. I refuse to let anybody involved in the program to delude themselves into a different reality, to dumb themselves and let them live that fantasy of dumbing themselves down, when they know obviously that this is what happens to some of the target individuals. They lose their mind to the point of killing even kids, while these trash are pushing us to the insanity level. When the target individual lose their mind, it's not them who's going to be hurt. This low life. It's this poor kid, that 10-year-old, asking why would somebody do that, and then try to find a way to counter that. Please listen to the reality of things.
Specific voices, like what do the voices say?
All the derogatory stuff that I don't want to acknowledge it, don't want to give it credence, but it's one of those kind of shaming, derogatory, very negative.
Someone smiling, unthreatening, but we now know there is evidence he was hearing voices, had even reached out for help, a warning sign that may have been missed. And we begin our team coverage with ABC's senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas.
Law enforcement sources tell ABC News Aaron Alexis was a ticking time bomb, in recent days descending toward madness.
Might become the basis for his deadly outburst. And for the first time, law enforcement sources are confirming the alleged gunman had an interest in online conspiracy. Meanwhile, we're learning a lot more tonight about the man police are looking for, Robert Card, who struggles with mental illness, might become the basis for his deadly outburst. And for the first time, law enforcement sources are confirming the alleged gunman had an interest in online conspiracies. Eyewitness News reporter Tom Negavan digging deeper into that part of the story. He's in the newsroom for us. Tom.
Yeah, Bill, officials telling us more about his mental health issues, recently saying he was hearing voices, at one point allegedly threatening
sleeping in recent years, was hearing voices in his head. Law enforcement sources say he made contact with 2 VA.
Organic. So there's a damage to the brain. So to answer this question scientifically would take somebody to measure that energy coming into my brain. But
who was investigating, who was CIA, came down with the same symptoms. So it's kind of interesting. The doctors they hired that they are not even allowed to know.
Talk directly into that thing.
That they do not even know that we've been working on the same weapons, directed energy weapons, often referred to as mind control weapons. Chinese are working on them. The Russians and U.S. have had them for a long time. But dial-in lethality is what's happening oftentimes for those that show mild traumatic brain injury. It can be done through cavitation effects using sound waves, highly unlikely in the Cuban embassy attacks. And it can be done through microwave-directed energy if it's amplified. And in fact, there's something called the Frey effect. The Army had it on their website called V2K, and that's how a lot of people refer to it, that can pipe voices into someone's head. You can't plug your ears. It actually vibrates the brain, which is like many concussions, through the small pulses that expand the tissue and then contracts it, then goes to the inner ear where they can hear it.
Boston University say a mass shooter who killed 18 people last year in Maine had significant evidence of traumatic brain injuries. Robert Card had worked at an Army hand grenade training range. He was likely exposed to thousands of low-level blasts. This